Hello, welcome to the Three Orcs Discord channel. This is David, and the YouTube live stream for the week is an update on all the work I've done all week long, and we stream this every Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific time to catch everybody up on this project that we're working on with the Verbobonc Campaign Guide 576 Common Year, which is basically running the original Temple of Elemental Evil module by Gary Gygax and written by Frank Mencher in the default timeline of the Greyhawk box set, which is 576 Common Year, but the module states it's supposed to be run at 579 Common Year. And in my mind, that's 3 years of buildup of all the activities of the temple on its second rise and all the bandit and pirate activity out in the Viscounty and the Gnarly Forest. So this is an exciting episode of the live stream because we have another special guest this week. Now, normally we have a Dungeon Master that's running this campaign, and I like to have them come on and tell us what's been going on in his campaign, how he's running it, how he's making Greyhawk his own. If you guys hear an echo, let me know in the chat, and I'll make sure I can fix it. Also, if you have any questions during this live stream, just go ahead and ask in the YouTube channel, and we can answer them for you. Because I always like to have people ask questions so that we can talk about it. There's a lot of questions about this project and what you can do with it and the scope of this sandbox version of the campaign, which is not just running the module from the pages, but you're running this campaign in the surrounding lands around Nob, Hamlet, the Wild Coast, all the way to Valuna, Thurandi, down to Selene. And it makes it so where the players can go almost anywhere, and all the activities of the Temple of Elemental Evil leadership and their agents are far-reaching. It's like peeling back layers of the onion to find out what's going on. And as the campaign starts, all anybody knows is that banditry is on the rise along the merchant roads of the Viscounty and in the Gnarly Forest, and it's getting out of hand. And so the leaders of Valuna and Thurandi are starting to get suspicious, and they suspect something might be going on around Nob. And they sent two of their agents there to investigate to find out what's going on. And as you all know, that's Elmo, the smith, and Candice Day, the cleric of St. Cuthbert from Hamlet. And she's there posing as a herbalist. Now, I've been creating the villages in this area of the sandbox. I know I'm repeating myself on every video because you never know who's going to join. I haven't heard this before, but I highly suggest you watch all these videos of these different villages that I created, all these different organizations like the Elves of the Gnarly, the Druids, the Selene, the different lords of the Viscounty, up to divers, and all the bandit and pirate gangs. So basically, you got a lot going on, and I got 13 villages developed. And this week, my report is I'm working on a new village. Now, this village is important because it's on the border of the Viscounty of Verbobonc on the east side along the Fens of Tor. And if you're going to run a module from Living Greyhawk called Noble Ambitions, we had him as a guest about a month ago about going over this module and getting his permission to write it up for this fan content website for everybody to use in their campaign. I decided that a village needed to be added at that location before they got into the Fens, because it's a good place to get rumors, get help, hirelings, and it's a staging area for getting into the Fens, because the Fens are pretty dangerous. And I also added a Lizardman village within there, and so that can be interacted with the players as they cross it into the Gnarly Forest, looking for the Ancient Soul dungeon, the temple. I've run it many times. So that's what I've been doing all week. And if you'll see on World Anvil how far I've gotten on that. And I think I got 4 locations down in town now, and I'm still working on the map. I have to hand draw all the individual map objects for the map. So that way it's custom fit for that location, which is waterlogged, soaked Fens village, Thorpe. It's really small with a mounted border or a station there. And it's related to Night versus Day module by Living Greyhawk, which is another adventure that is related to that location, where Lord Melinius' man throws somebody under the bus or makes him guilty for something he didn't do. A Captain Para, I think it is. But I can show you that on the screen a little bit. But this week we have a guest from the Living Greyhawk era. Now, real quick before we go to our guest, the reason I'm using Living Greyhawk information is to help develop this world. And Gary Gygax, as intended in all his writings and interviews, he intended the Dungeon Master to expand the world. That's why in Knoll, there's only 4 locations given to that village in the Temple of Elemental Evil module, and he expects you to create more locations and expand the campaign out. And also, there's other temple outposts out there besides the Mow House. It could be fire, earth, water, air, and they have their own temples, and they're raiding because the reason behind all this really is they're highly heavy recruiting coming in for this second rise of the Temple of Elemental Evil. And what they're doing is they're leveraging bandits and pirates and brigands in the area to do that. Also, the different temple agents are out there doing the same thing, recruiting, raiding, bringing back supplies, going after powerful magic items to do anything for the rise and make sure their temple comes up out on top. Because as you know from reading the module, they're at each other's throats, backstabbing each other, and the players could use them against each other. And that's basically what Gygax intended. And you could do that in the other world too. I have 2,000 articles written for this article. I've been working on it for 7 years. There's a lot going on. Now, the main reason I'm using Living Greyhawk locations is because they still exist no matter what timeline you're in. Living Greyhawk was from year 594 Common Year to 599 Common Year, something like that. But the locations, organizations, a lot of the NPCs still exist. I just had to change the Viscount out and a few things like that. But like Twilight Falls, Sheer Knob, Ostwerk, all those villages still existed. And in Living Greyhawk only gave you a sketch of what that place was like, those locations and NPCs. And I expanded them 100-fold, as you can see on my website. Now, all the villages, just like the village of Hamlet, is fully keyed. NPCs, organizations, the guards, the leaders, everything, even quest and plot hooks, and maps, and VTT maps. There's a lot of value I add. So that's why I'm using the Living Greyhawk, inspired by those locations. And I also like those modules help bring the campaign to life more than just running the module and going to the dungeon as a dungeon slog. It keeps the players away from Nob for a while. They go off on these other little quests like the Gift of Beauty or Noble Ambitions, things like that, or going and helping the gnomes in Sheer Knob against those giant raids. And it really brings the campaign to life, and it shows more importance upon the leadership, the nobles of Viscounty, find out who's behind helping the rise of the Temple of Elemental Evil, because there are agents in Verbobonc with some nobles. And I think that kind of brings Game of Thrones meets Temple of Elemental Evil. I think that's really important to really bring the campaign to life and make it epic. The Three Orcs epic. So that's why also the main reason I'm using Living Greyhawk locations is because Anna Meyer cemented them in her maps. So if you're using Anna Meyer's Greyhawk maps, all those locations are on her maps. So basically that kind of canonized those locations in Greyhawk, and everybody expects those locations to be there. This isn't my personal campaign, something I made up out of thin air because I thought it was cool. No, this is all canonical to the World of Greyhawk box set, all the lore boxes and supplements that came out since then, and integrating the Living Greyhawk stuff into this campaign. So that way, all the things that happen in the Living Greyhawk campaign is possible future events, because this module happens before the Greyhawk Wars. So I'm really excited to talk to the original authors of the Living Greyhawk modules, because there's a lot of questions. Some of the things is kind of vague, and I like to clarify a few things and have some specific questions about certain things. And also I'd like to hear their viewpoint of where the campaign went and what to expect from it and how to look at it. So I have one of my favorite authors here, Ron Lundeee. Let's see what we got. Let me go ahead and bring him on over here, and let me find him on my live stream. If you have any questions, please let me know. So I got some scribbling going on the screen. I'm not sure why, but we got Ron Lundeen. Thank you for joining the 3 Orcs live stream. I really appreciate you finally joining me to talk about all your work you did in Living Greyhawk.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, and I really appreciate your patience in finding a good time for our schedules to mesh where I could join you. This is really great fun. It's really good being able to chat with you.
Thank you so much. I wasn't so sure how you would take this kind of project or any of the original Living Greyhawk Triad members, because what I'm doing with it is so different from what you guys did with it originally from 2000 to 2008.
Well, what you've got is you're taking a lot of the original material and keeping it framed within sort of the intent of Greyhawk at that time. And that's really positive for people who really want to be Temple of Elemental Evil, people who want to do, revisit T1 Village of Hamlet, stuff like that. We didn't even get started until they had already told us that it was going to be in 591 and then all the way through, carry it through till 598. So we were already, that kind of stuff was in the past, but also the different nations of Greyhawk were mapped to different parts of the world as part of the Living Campaign. And in Illinois and Indiana, we were the Viscounty of Verbobonc. But we were told pretty expressly, you cannot touch the Temple of Elemental Evil, you cannot touch Nulb, and you cannot touch Hamlet. Have your adventures be everything else that is going on in the area. And I was initially a little put off by that. I'm like, but this is the most famous places in Greyhawk are right next door, and they're totally off limits. But I realized how much stuff there was still accessible to us. And then the original authors, frankly, before I moved to Illinois, had already built up on some of that. And so we were able to carry that forward up through all the way to the end of the campaign.
Yeah, I think Rick Brunner went over that too. When I had him a couple of months ago on the stream, he was talking to us about how you couldn't touch the temple, and I understand that completely. And it's unfortunate because I know, there's a lot of different kind of players, and one certain type of player are the ones that like to do a lot of dungeon bashing and dungeon crawling. And I noticed that a lot of the Living Greyhawk modules were more role playing based.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of that is the requirement of the time limit, because these things had to be kind of start and be done within 4 hours. Something like a sprawling mega dungeon like the Temple of Elemental Evil doesn't really work for that type of model. You could have maybe here's this one part of the dungeon in one of the adventures, and then you leave for whatever reason, and then come back, and 8 months later, you're playing a different part of the same dungeon. It just ends up being a little easier for us to say, look, let's do confined stories that are going to fit within the time period, which does mean there's fights, but also means we do a lot of characterization and things like that. So that's why they ended up being, that's why I think they started being primarily really driven by some of the NPCs. And as the players got involved with those NPCs, they wanted to know more about them. And so they were telling us, we want to hear what happens next with these NPCs. So,
like Abel.
Yeah. Abelhar, the Magister of the Wrinkle Academy. Yeah,
he's wonderful.
Yeah, I didn't intend him to be the important NPC. He was. That's how people got to know him. But really, it was like his Dust Method familiar Threnody that was kind of the main character in my mind. And so you actually have Magister Har as kind of this quest giver throughout, and maybe kind of a mysterious, and at times you may even consider him sort of sinister, but he's not, quest giver. But really, it's his Dust Method familiar that you keep showing up, that you keep seeing again and again. So,
there's a lot of adventures created, written, hundreds, thousands, if you count the entire campaign from across the states.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure which ones you wrote, but I wrote an article trying what I found. I didn't know if you had a chance to go over this article to see how accurate my list was.
Oh, I remembered doing writing or co-writing for all of those, but I didn't compare them directly to. I think your list is complete.
Oh,
I will take a look and then let you know if there's anything else. But I do have to say, one of the things that I had, I work professionally as a developer now, where I will assign freelancers work and then edit the work for consistency with the plots that we need and sort of world lore and the voice. And so I have my fingerprints all over things that don't bear my name as an author. And that was the case when I was one of the administrators in the Living Greyhawk came in the Verbobonc region as well. So there's a lot of these I remember adventures that I remember very well, every one of the plot beats beginning to end, the characters. And then I look at the front cover. I'm like, oh, actually, I didn't write that. Somebody else wrote that. But because I'd had such a hand in making sure that it meshed with everything else, I felt a lot more ownership.
Wow, it's a lot of work here. There's a lot of it's more than I can actually assimilate into what I'm doing, and I had to cherry pick to fit within the confines of the Temple of Elemental Evil campaign setting.
Yeah, a lot of the things that we wrote went from one end of Verbobonc to the other. And so the things that are going on in the Ironwood with the Town of Glory, it isn't relevant if you're in the area of the gnarly forest, and you want to make sure that you're keeping the focus around Hamlet and Nulb and the temple.
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something I was thinking about. So I have the map on screen right now. In fact, this map is 1 mile per hex. I found that because of all this adventure in this relatively small area, I had to have a more zoomed in version of the campaign map. But I also have another map, which is every hex is 3 miles, and that's this one, a league. And if you look to the west, you'll see Glory, Woodstock, and Rhinehurst. But if you look down at Hamlet and Nulb, it's pretty far away. And I know when I'm running my groups, they have a problem going all the way back to the city of Verbobonc, let alone go in that other direction. But with that said, there are a few campaigns. There's a few Dungeon Masters running this campaign that do have players running around that neck of the woods. And they actually asked me to flush out some of these other villages. Like I already did Littleborough. We have a Dungeon Master, this is Ryan. I think he's working on Rhinehurst, Woodstock, and Glory. I know one of these don't exist in 576 Common yet.
But you did Sheerknob as well, is that right? And that's a little further away. That's the Gnomish Land. No, that's right up against it, I guess. That's where at the Cron Hills.
So if you look at the map, Sheerknob is 10 miles south of Hamlet. Nib's Rest, which I renamed from Cienega Valley because that's some sort of California orchid, that's 10 miles northwest of Hamlet. Nulb is around 8 miles northeast of Hamlet. Ostwerk is 20 miles south of Hamlet, and it's around the border of Selene, and that's where the Gift of Beauty is. And that gives a reason for players to travel away from Hamlet and Nulb.
Well, that's also another set of allies, right? The Elven Nation of Selene and Queen Yolanda of Selene is another ally they might need if Verbobonc either isn't close enough or they want to be playing one group off the other. Now, I have to say, my group hasn't yet ventured that far. They don't feel like I'm running I guess technically I'm running Village of Hamlet, not the full Temple of Elemental Evil experience, but we'll see. There is a local medieval village near us, and they do a monthly game night. And at the monthly game night, I'm running the Village of Hamlet. And they cool. I'm actually going to be finishing it up this month. Is going to be our last session of the Village of Hamlet. And that's when I'll have the conversation with the people that are there. It's very much kind of a drop in, drop out kind of game. It's, who comes, although I do have some people that have gone consistently. And I want to ask them, hey, do we want to have maybe adventure in a different part of the world? Or do you want to try, delving into the Temple of Elemental Evil? And how would that work in a kind of drop in, drop out style of campaign, right? But we'll see what they say. I think that it's been a lot of fun. They don't ever they haven't had to go any further as they explore the moat house. They haven't had to go any further than Hamlet. Hamlet is kind of still at this point the safe place for them, even though there's all sorts of evil machinations in town. They think they've uprooted all of them. They have not come anywhere close to uprooting all of them. So my group hasn't needed to go as far as Verbonc City or Selene or any of that. But if we continue it, maybe they will.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I like using some of the Living Greyhawk adventures to integrate, to stretch out from away from Hamlet to Nulb and interact with the players to get them more engaged into the campaign world, and then finally get them to Nulb. On the screen right now, I do have my main article for Nulb. And if you look at it down there, I have a VTT map I made for the village, which is highly detailed. All my articles have flavor text and dialogue and all that. On the right-hand side is all the locations I created for that village. So those are the expanded locations.
This is the this was interesting. I wanted to ask about this when you were doing the intro before I came on. I heard you mention the city that you're building. You've got 4 locations already, but you haven't yet done the map. And the one by the Fens of Tor. I'm like, whoa. I couldn't interrupt you. I wasn't on, but I'm like, wait, building a map is like the number 1 thing I do when I'm building a city. And then I populate everything that needs to go in it after the map. So the fact that you've started with what's there and then are following up with the map is interesting to me, because that's not the way I build cities.
No. If you look at my map, I created the map first. So this is Nob. And Nob was easy to start with because there was already a template for it. Traditionally, over the years, it's the same layout.
Yeah.
So I just flushed it out. I expanded it, added a lot of detail, and I kept a lot of the buildings empty for other Dungeon Masters to do what they want with it.
Yeah.
But I focused on the factions: the pirates, brigands, bandits, the 2 taverns, the leadership of the temple, and their agents. And they have agents in town too. And I have added a constable that's very ineffective, but that his job to this hive of scum and villainy is his job to take care of these bandits and brigands, but he's not doing a very good job at it.
Well, and if he were doing a good job, the bandits and brigands would ensure he wasn't very long for this world and get somebody else, I imagine. Yeah. We did visit Nob a little bit. I'm at Paizo Publishing now, but I was at Wizards of the Coast for about 3 years, up until very recently. And we did a sort of a short revisit, a short adventure called Scions of Temple of Elemental Evil, which is actually set very late, because I think that's set after the second uprising has been quelled, because everything's all, the temple's all kind of collapsed, smashed up then. But we do go to Nob, and it remains a hive of scum and villainy. And your best bet there is to pretend to be a cultist. That's the best way to get along.
Yes.
But yeah, a lot of ways to approach it. I'm excited to see a really flushed out Nob. So
I've done it. In fact, I'm selling it on Dungeon Masters Guild right now. It's actually a number 1 bestseller right now.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
And Wachi gets half of my profits.
That's a DM's Guild for you.
You
use the IP, you kick back some of the earnings. That's
also, it gives everybody permission to use my material for their products too.
Yep. Yeah. Creates kind of a sandbox. Everybody gets to play with everybody else's toys. It's a really great model.
Truthfully, the only reason I put on DM's Guild, the main reason, is because I have a lot of Dungeon Masters running this project, this campaign, on the 3 Arcs Discord channel, and they follow my Patreon. And a lot of them was asking for a printable version of these villages. And I said, okay, I'll go ahead and put a printable professional PDF together, and I'll sell it on DM's Guild. That way you can download it and print it up. And that's what I did for them.
Excellent.
Yeah. Because it's not really worth the money, because there's not a lot of money to be made with selling stuff on DM's Guild.
Right. Yeah, I've done very little bit with DM's Guild. Paizo has a similar Pathfinder Infinite and Starfinder Infinite. I've played around a little bit. Same concept. You get to use their intellectual property, but they get a cut of what you make, and it's fun. It does feel a little bit restrictive, right? Because you can't sell the Nob stuff anywhere else,
right?
Except on DM's Guild. But at least everybody who goes looking for it knows where to look, and so that's why you can be found very easily.
Well, I want to be clear on that too. That fact that the World Anvil website that I have open right now. Now, this has got 2,000 articles, and this is where all the 13 villages, the full city of Verbobonc is fully flushed out, detailed, and keyed with the new map I made. All the organizations in the area, everything's on here. Even I redid all the artwork for the gods and their holy symbol, the races. 7 years worth of effort here.
Wow.
But at the bottom of every page, this is a big page. Dang it. There's that. So it's a fan content policy at the bottom of every page. So this is free to use for anybody to use at their table, and I don't charge anything for it. And whenever I do make any kind of maps, even for the DM's Guild, I always give away the normal version for free. That way people can use it, because it's Greyhawk stuff. But if they want a higher resolution version of that map, they have to come to my Patreon to get it.
Okay. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. You put a lot of work into it, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. the rights are a little bit something that I've navigated as well with the Living Greyhawk campaign. The first couple of years of the campaign, you got paid a rate for turning the work over, and then it became property of Wizards of the Coast. And then about year 2, they changed that policy, so you got paid less, but after a certain amount of time, the rights reverted to you. So even though you couldn't use the intellectual property, you could use the story. And so I did like a third-party non-IP version of I want to say, was it Armor Class? I think it was Armor Class that I did.
First one on the list here.
Yeah, that's funny. We had, and I'm excited to hear you did a map of Verbobonc. And when we were running the campaign, we commissioned an artist to do a new map of the Viscounty of Verbobonc, because we wanted to have one where you could see the areas of influence of the different nobles that were in it. And we wanted to make sure that some of the things we were adding for the campaign appeared on that map. And so I think it was Russ Ackard did the map for us. And we talked all the way through about how we ought to do something like that for the city of Verbobonc and get like our map that we use for the city of Verbobonc. Wow. And we never did.
Well, it's on the screen right now.
Excellent.
You see all those tags? They're all interactive tabs that you can click on and take you right to those articles.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, in fact, if you put your cursor over it, it pops up a little blurb of what the place is.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So a lot of people are asking me to convert this into a DM's Guild module, and it's going to take forever. I don't know if I'm willing to do that. It's going to take a lot. It's going to probably be like 500 pages.
Yep. But one of the things I found is that because there was a sort of dividing line in the middle of regarding the rights. Ooh, I think I might have my lights went off. Can you still hear me? See me?
I hear you, but your video froze.
Yeah, my lights on my camera just went off.
Oh, maybe unplugged.
Let me see what I can do.
Okay, while you're doing that, we have Eddie. Eddie T says he's browsing my Greyhawk module on World Anvil yesterday. Thank you. And he also said, crazy work. Thank you for the resources. You're welcome, Eddie. I'm glad. If you want, you're more than welcome to join the Three Oaks Discord channel, because us Dungeon Masters, I work on this daily, every day for like 4 or 5 hours. And while I'm working on these articles, every time I create an article, I link it into the Discord for everybody to review and critique. So if I get anything wrong, or I think I should change something, or I didn't get something right, you guys all immediately jump on it, and I can edit it right away and fix things. And also, some of you guys are actually creating some of these articles for me, like Halagant authored The Four Clans of the Gnarly. He's written all the history stuff for Vecna and things like that in the past. So he's highly qualified to write that kind of material in Living Greyhawk. So I got him helping out a lot, and some other Dungeon Masters are too. So you're more than welcome to join the Three Orcs Discord, and I'd love to have you over there. So are you still there, Ron?
I am. I'm still fidgeting. Give me a second here.
Okay, I'll keep talking.
Sure.
So basically, the campaign, we're talking to a guest, Ron Lundeen. He's used to be a Triad member for Living Greyhawk of the Verbobonc area. He's one of the prestigious members of the Triad back then. And not only did he write these adventures that you see on the screen right here, but he co-authored and edited many of the others. So he's in a position to know quite a bit. And I do have some questions for him when he finally gets back, because there's some things like he mentioned earlier, the borders of the Viscounty. In fact, I should bring that up right now, because that is something that's kind of important that I wanted to talk about. So City of Verbobonc, there's Nob. Let's hide this screen. Okay, so that one is the Eastern Viscounty. In case you guys are wondering, the Eastern Viscounty map is each hex is a 1 mile, because a lot of stuff happens. In my campaign, I start my campaign in the city of Verbobonc with the Noble Ambitions module, which I got permission to rewrite, and it's on this website. So you can actually run that adventure, but it's not complete yet. I got the players to Anshan. That's as far as I got the written adventure, which is like part 9, and I'm about to tackle the Fens of Tor tomorrow, the journey across the Fens of Tor. And there's Anshin. If you click on it once, it brings up a side panel for the location or NPC. But if you click on read full article, it'll pull up a whole nother article. And I'll show you what Anshin looks like. I did a pretty good job. I've been working on this for a couple of days, and I'm currently working on the map as we speak. After we're done with today's live stream, I'm going to work more on the map because I'm creating these map objects, like the huts and stuff. And if you scroll down past all these locations, so I got Meyer Watch House done, Ashton Mill, the Church of the Cudgel, and the Bog and Barrel Tavern. Those first 4 are done, and I have Mounted Borderer Station, the Watchtower, the Swine Pits, and the Marsh Witch. So I'm going to put a total of 7 locations here so far. That's what I decided. This is supposed to be a very small fens, Thorpe, with maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 people at the most. And the map's coming along pretty good. As you can see from the artwork here, it's going to look kind of like that. So back to the map. Let's see. So that's Anshin. So in the Noble Ambitions, I run my players through that at first level. So they go down through Penwick. They go to Osbury Manor, spend the night. They say, help find us our treasure. Okay. And they head east following the clues into Anshin, to the Fens of Tor. And finally, on the top right-hand corner is a filter. And if you click on DM only, all the dungeons pop up. So the dungeon's done. This is called the Ancient Shul Ruins, the temple. And that VTT map is complete. And it's fully keyed on my private site, but I have to rewrite it for this site. So the module is supposed to end there, recovering her treasures, and the players fight the orcs and loot everything. And then on the way back, they go to Osbury Manor, turn in her Jewel of Osbury, the Flaming Sword of Osbury, and the Gem of Osbury, and that ends that adventure. And so from there, the players end up going towards Hamlet. And then on the way to Hamlet, they witness things. Bandit raids. On top of the Edders is a abandoned watchtower, and it's on fire. And they heard that there's a balance of nature ritual going on up there. And all the druids and rangers are invited to attend this event. So that might be a plot hook for the players. They might want to investigate that. They'll see flying vultures to the west. They get hit by bandits and Earth Temple raiders on the way to Hamlet. So these things, I trigger the players with events that are happening in this campaign. And they also witness what's happening to the gnomes as they're doing this. They'll come across gnome merchant wagons burning. They're just hit by gnolls and Earth Temple bandits. So that's what's going on in this campaign. But the filter. So what we're talking about is the Barony Borders. So you click on Barony Borders, and I did want to talk to Ron about this. Now nobody really knows the borders of the Viscounty in 576 Common Year. Now they did create a map in one of the modules for like 594 Common Year, but it's for later, after the Greyhawk Wars. And it's after Lord Millennius took over the lands of Osbury. So the borders are no good for the 576 Common Year. So I had to decipher that. And I asked a lot of the Triad members what they thought, and nobody had an answer. So I'm hoping Ron had some insight on this.
And I think I'm back.
Hey, thank you. Welcome back, Ron.
Thanks. I will check my resource. At the end of the campaign, I got heft them up here. I got this big 3-volume set that's all the adventures of Verbobonc from 591 to 598.
Where'd you get that?
So I had them made for me and the other 2 Triad members when we closed out the campaign. So there's only three sets of these that exist.
Yeah, Bruner said something about that. He showed it.
Yeah, but if you've got 594, you asked, well, I look at 594 to 596 volume, and I can go, just very old school.
In the module, in the adventures, in one of the modules, there is a map of the borders, but Lord Millennius already took over the lands of House Osbury. I want to know the original border of House Osbury, and nobody seems to know that.
Oh, I don't think I know that either.
Okay, next.
Woo! Well, because we had the whole, and again, this is 2 decades after your campaign is set, but we had Asbury ended up getting Simon Millanis being a bad guy, but then turned out he'd been replaced by somebody with one spoilers now, it was a decade old. But it was turned out he'd been replaced by a villain, and the true Simon Millanis was recovered. So they ended up getting married and joining their houses together. And what it was before, though, I'm afraid I cannot help you.
Oh. I put the link to the Discord in the video, so if anybody wants the link to the Discord channel. Yeah. Well, if you look at the map, a couple of people, I think Rick Bruner suggested that it's reasonable to assume that House Osbury lands and Lord Malinius joined each other around the village of Penwick. That seems to be central. And we couldn't really determine where Penwick rested. Was it in Lady Osbury's land, or was it in Lord Malinius's land?
Yep. That not only does that sound sensible to me, Rick Bruner is the best person to ask, because my time came into Verbobonc after his, and they had been established by then. So,
and then we had an argument today about about where Anshin is. So one DM here, he's a religious living Greyhawk guy. He goes, Anshin is in Lord Malinius's land, and I put it in Lady Eleanor's land. So it looks like I might have to make some changes here.
I think it does go in Lord Malinius's land. I think that person is correct.
Yeah, I have the module right here, and it's called Night and Day. I think it's number 9, 1-09.
1-09.
Yeah. Okay, I'll have to change that on the maps, on both maps. There's more work. I don't like work. That's cool. We should talk more about you, though. So, when did you join, actually, the Living Greyhawk campaign?
I was playing the Living Greyhawk campaign from the beginning, but I was living in Salt Lake City, Utah at the time. So my first actual adventure was in year 1 of Nyrond. And then when I moved to Chicago in late 2001 to go to law school, I joined the Verbobonc region, and I was there for a couple of years, year and a half, before I was able to convince them, hey, I could write scenarios for you guys. Come on, let me write scenarios for you guys. I already did it in back in Nyrond. And at that point, I was picking up some of the stuff. I think the first one that I wrote was the standalone armor class, in fact.
Yes.
And the map for the school for armor class was actually based on the law school I was attending at the time at the University of Chicago. So, you write what you know, I guess.
Okay, cool.
And then from there, I was able to do, I co-wrote Dwarven Dawn with Lon Latimer. And then from there, I was given maybe a little bit of a freer hand to write some of the things. So I wrote the Glory series. The first one of those was in year 2. And maybe that was the first thing I wrote for Verbobonc, was the first of the Glory series. But then I was able to kind of take the character of Shannis, who had already been established by another author, and kind of carry that forward. And Shannis became a character throughout a lot of the other parts of the campaign. Not just the stories I wrote, but some of the other things that showed up. There was a lot of really heavy borrowing that went on between all of us authors when we would look to see when we needed, somebody that was perhaps an insensitive, maybe even monstrous NPC of some sort of authority. Rather than make one up, we would often look, okay, who else has been used in this? So we kind of see the same people over and over. A lot of heavy borrowing from each other.
That's fantastic. It makes a more cohesive campaign that way.
Yep. So
Lon Latimer was responsible for a lot of that too, and then it was taken over by I can't remember the name.
Who was at the beginning was Michael Breslin, Lon Latimer, I don't remember who the third Triad member was there at the beginning, but I came in, I want to say about 2004, maybe, as a Triad member. And then work got very busy. I had graduated law school and was a practicing lawyer at the time, so I had to step away.
Oh.
But then I came back in when we got sort of the notification that the campaign would be winding down. And I came in for the last year and a little bit, to sort of try to pull all the threads that we had sent spiraling in every which direction, send all the threads back together. And I was able to work with Vernon Vincent quite a lot. My good friend Greg Hannigan, Cheryl Ruby, Terry Donner, a lot of folks that were really active, not just in playing, but developing the stories and doing a lot of the writing.
Yeah, and try to remember the names of the person that took over after you left. I can look it up on Facebook, but I don't want to show it on screen.
Right. Well, I know after, there were Michael Menza was part of it. Rob Silva, great guy. But everybody that's been a Triad member in Verbobonc, I have known and have a lot of respect for all of them, because they've got a lot of what they tried to bring. Everybody had different voices that they were trying to bring things together. And sometimes we didn't necessarily agree on the way things should be pointed necessarily, but we could agree that everybody wanted what was best for the players and the best for the story, and try to engage as many players as possible. We had a lot of long discussions, not only about what was going to happen in a particular adventure, but even things like, okay, at which conventions would the adventures premiere to get the most engaged group of players, get as many people as possible playing them in order to sort of have a lot of people excited and carry the story forward. Along with each of these adventures, there are a number of what we were calling interactives, special events that would run at one convention only, that would also carry the story forward. And we had sort of one big interactive every year. And some of those things would change. What we were able to do, because unlike one of the adventures that we put out where a lot of people would play it, we would have a critical event summary where people would report back to us, hey, here's what our table did. And so we were able to decide, okay, what did most tables do? And that becomes canon. That becomes the thing that happened going forward. We could do that frankly, a lot faster at an interactive, because we were able to see, okay, these are all the tables that ran it here. This will not run again, or if it does run again, it'll be kind of as a secondary experience the fun, but don't report the results kind of thing. So we were able to pivot really quickly with the interactive. So,
when I was working when I was working for TSR back in the late 80s, one of my jobs was to run events at conventions for the West Coast, and with the RPGA too. And I had to train those guys to do those conventions. And one of my jobs was to find, recruit, hire Dungeon Masters and train them to run these events. And then I'd come up with a box of presents that are all signed by the original authors, like the Splat books.
Awesome.
And that's what some of the modules published back in the day that's how we play tested them at the conventions. And then I'd make sure I wrote detailed reports up and sent it over to TSR for them to analyze.
Excellent.
Gene Rabe was my boss. Gene Rabe.
Oh, wow.
I called him Gene.
I see Damian Edwards.
He's the big guy here.
Shannis was fleshed out a little as a dragon disciple of the Mist Elf tribe of the Ironwood. Can you please tell us any more about the Mist Elves? No, and here's why. At that point, we needed to make sure, one of the things that we're trying really hard to do to keep up with the pace of the third edition as it was coming out, was to the extent something came out that wasn't expressly for some game world of its own, we needed to find kind of a home for it. We were sort of encouraged to find a home for it. So some of the things we wouldn't necessarily need to do when what I want to say, like the Sandstorm supplement, that's all about desert adventures. Okay, we didn't do much with that. We don't have desert in Verbobonc. But to the extent they talked about different types of elves, we're like, well, all the different types of elves, to the extent we can, we're going to find a place for somewhere. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think the Mist Elves had been mentioned as a kind of elf, and we're like, well, where might they go? Well, we know that the Ironwood is supposedly particularly imposing and foggy, and mist elves might be in this foggy forest, so yeah, we'll put them there. That was not exclusively me. I don't remember who created the character initially of Shannis, but that it would surprise me if it were anything other than, here is a type of elf, let's find a home for them in our campaign. And that's the kind of thing that DMs do all over still today. They see some book with some interesting, like, oh, where might this fit in my campaign? Off the southern coast is an island with that type of monster or those type of people or whatever, right? It's the classic accretion that a lot of D&D campaigns get.
Good answer. We talk about things like that all the time in the Discord, and I'm not. You guys are more of an expert on some of this lore than I am, because you're coming up with a lot of this stuff, and I didn't know you guys then. But I know something about you, though. You're obviously a prolific writer. A lot of these modules have short, succinct introductions and simple plot and summary, but yours are just like Bruner's, with noble ambitions. It's quite lengthy here. It's like a lot of story here. It's pretty involved. It's pretty interesting. I noticed that you guys seem to gravitate towards a lot of real writers at the Verbobonc Triad. You got not the normal dungeon master.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a funny answer about that. I think that if you'd been now, right, we're coming up on 20 years later, almost 17 years later.
Yeah.
If you'd have asked me, 5 years after the end of the campaign, I'd have told you that was a big mistake to be so wordy. And I would have said it's a big mistake because the DMs are busy people with busy lives. The important thing is to just get right to the point, and tell them what they need to know so that their table has a good time, and that's it. And that Ron would have told the earlier Ron, you need to cut down your adventures substantially. You're spinning off into too much story that the players might not ever experience,
right?
That the DMs might not have time to prepare.
Noble Ambitions was quite lengthy.
It is, yes. And a lot of people, a lot of the other authors really took that to heart and wrote really long, convoluted, complicated stories. And then the more I worked with and now I manage the organized play for the Pathfinder Society, right, where we have to fit everything within a certain amount of time. We really push for shorter adventures that are really punching to the point.
Right.
That said, I think looking back at it now and pulling out the old, the compiled adventures, I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased they're as long as they are, because the use for them at the time was run this at a convention within 4 hours. But my use for them now is different. How do I spin off a campaign? And even at the time, I didn't realize how many people were taking these and spinning them off into their own campaigns. And
they're highly valuable to somebody like me.
Oh, yeah. And I think that to the extent there was, and I even knew a couple of people at the time who didn't like the constraints of the 4 hours with, rigorously tracked XP and gear that went out to people on their adventure records, and you had to report them all to the RPGA and so on and things like that. They're like, no, I just get these and I just, modify them however I see fit and run them for my campaign. And if I've got a lot of backstory, that's great, because I want to know a lot. So...
Yeah. Well, here's an example of like Noble Ambitions. It's a wonderful. That was a glowing review I did on it with Rick Bruner, and I thought it was amazing. And he gave me permission to rewrite it. And on the screen right now is the first page, the main page of the actual adventure quest line. And I did all the artwork myself, and including the herald for House Osbury. And I had a lot of dialogue and a lot of flavor text and stuff. But as you can see on the main page on the right-hand side, those are all the encounters, the role-play encounters, the scenes for the adventure, and I got as far as number 9 in Anshan, the small thorp at the edge of the Fens of Tor. The 4 quests below that, the 5 quests below that, are add-on side quests for individual players in the campaign that's related to the main quest. So you're looking at so far 14. It takes a month of play to get through all these. It takes a while, and there's no way you could run something like this at a convention. But as you can see, this is quite massive. A lot's going on in this campaign.
Yeah, when we were trying to put these together, and this was not the case when Rick Brunner was writing. I think that there was a little less constraints around it, which is why some of the adventures are much longer or shorter. The actual adventure itself was generally no more than 3 fights. And so to the extent you wanted to put more to it than that, it was story that was more than that. Why were you in these fights? What were the stakes? What was going on, right? You might want to do something where you're like, well, how about this one is 6 fights? Well, no, the actual mechanics of how long it takes somebody to roll initiative and roll their dice of 6 fights was too much. It would have been just fine for something in a homebrew. Expanding it like you're doing now makes a lot of sense.
Well, the first scene when they're getting recruited by Lady Eleanor Asbury at Jolly's Inn, that's a whole session alone. Yeah. Just one session. And
trying to get everything set, yeah.
So I couldn't imagine running this at a convention. They had to go. I think he did mention he went overtime. He said that when he was running them, that they would keep playing after the fact. They would just go past the 4-hour mark.
Mm-hmm. And if you were doing it, like if you'd had people over to your house to run it or whatever, then that was not a problem. It was a little bit more complicated if a slot had to end at 1 p.m. because the next slot started at 1:30 p.m. At the convention you were at.
Well, a lot of people, another thing I want to kind of touch on is like this first example on the screen right here is that this is what the modules looked like at the convention in the Dungeon Master's hands. So basically, if a Dungeon Master was recruited to run this event, they'd be handed in person, probably, this module to run at the convention. And this is what it looked like. And you guys printed them up, probably spent your own money at that, and it cost more money to print back then.
Yep.
So
I remember doing it a lot.
So the first half is the Living Greyhawk scoring, how to run the event, the levels of play, the time, the upkeep of this. And then you finally get to the adventure summary and background. And then you break it down into the introduction with role-playing notes and dialogue. Then you finally get to Encounter 1, and then Encounter 2. And then finally, past after all the encounters, I just want somebody to see what this looks like so you know what we're talking about when we talk about these modules. So after, and also each of these scenes were broken down to different power levels.
We had different tiers because we didn't know if somebody that was going to be coming at this, if this was their 20th adventure they'd played and everybody was level 5, you'd want to give them a different challenge than if everybody was just starting and they were all level 1.
Got it. So then after 8, to the conclusion, you wrap it all up. Then finally, you got experience point summary, and then role-playing bonuses, summary of the treasure, and finally, you have the appendix, which is basically where all you put the non-player characters and the stat blocks.
Yes, and everything that is going to be a handout to the players must go back in the appendices. The maps had to go into the appendices. Later on, when we were starting to use rules that were not in the Player's Handbook or Dungeon Master's Guide, anything that we wanted, anything that was used in the adventure had to be copied in an appendix. So the reason some of these, especially in the later years, are getting up to 60, 80 pages, it's because if somebody has a prestige class, if one of the foes you fight has a prestige class, you had to repeat the prestige class in its entirety. And if they had some sort of special magical belt, you had to give them the magical belt and its stats in its entirety. Because we were assuming that you shouldn't need to bring anything with you to run these except for the 3 core books. The adventure had to give you everything else. Early on, there wasn't much else to use. And so the adventures don't have a lot of additional rules. But as the rule system started to grow and sort of get a lot more substance to it, a lot of that stuff had to be pulled to what are sometimes some way too long appendices.
Well, so I wanted to kind of review what I've done right now is what I have to tackle putting this campaign together. And so you saw how these modules are laid out. And so I have to data mine the information for locations and specific NPCs and organizations based on these modules. And then I write them up, as you guys all know what I do. And another thing that it's a challenge is all the maps in all these adventures look like this. Very simplified maps that, as you can tell, is a huge difference between the maps I make of these locations and the ones that came in the module. It's another reason why it takes me so long to get these locations done, because I have to do the maps too. During the day, I do writing articles, and that night is when I do my map making. And map making takes forever.
Yeah, two points about that. Back when we were doing this, even near the end of the campaign, the maps were just something that we would do on a computer with whatever, MS Paint or whatever we had handy.
Yeah.
Some authors were more adept with maps than others. Some people would draw them and were a lot more artistic and scan them. But I think that there were quite a lot of us who had come in at the time who were, speaking for myself, I was sort of at the beginning of my career as an adventure designer. And I've since written, something like 1 million words of adventure text since then. And I've gotten a lot better at what does a map need to convey? What does it need to look like to be interesting? And when I look at some of my older adventures, I'm like, oh, I knew none of that. My maps could be so much better than they were back in those days. So I'm glad to hear you say that the maps are a little bit onerous to do. Yes, that's my fault. What you're doing with my
you
maps.
All did it. It's
but
just the way it was back then.
Yep.
Yeah, I get it. The only map making program back then was that really expensive cartography one.
Right.
And it was $200?
Yeah, and I was a student for a lot of this, but yeah, this was just graphics I did for the armor class that happens to the Soul Dragon Academy Martial Training, which happens to have the classroom wing on one side and the dining and dormitories on the other, and then the main building with the fountain, just like the University of Chicago's Law School on the Midway Plaisance in Chicago.
Oh, that's cool. You're kind of like Gary Gygax. You use your environment around you that you live in.
Yes. Use what you know.
So about these modules, so people won't ask, the only way you can get these, like I said before, is if you're running this event at that time in that state and hand it to you in person, so you can run it at that convention on that particular weekend. So there's never published. It's not available on any website. It used to be available on the Verbobonc website, but that was taken down a long time ago, so it's no longer available.
Yeah, you could order them if you were going to be running like a private event, and the one of the things that the Triad, the administration in the region, would do is confirm that person, it was going to be running it at a place that was within the region. And I'm of two minds about that. First of all, it was it was really neat to have the adventures locked behind a specific geographic region. I was really fortunate in Chicago that we could just go over the border to Wisconsin, and then we were in the nation of High Folk and could play all kinds of High Folk adventures and advance our characters with them, and then come back to Verbobonc and be able to be playing characters there, or cut over to Iowa and play divers adventures and things like that. And so I remember even when I was a student trying to scrape the money together to travel to other places. My wife delights in telling the story about when we went on our honeymoon to England. I took a little bit of time away when we were on a honeymoon because I could play an on-wall adventure because I was actually in England.
Wow.
But
I bet that was an experience.
It was. If I could tell you a quick story.
Sure.
We get in the adventure we played. I don't remember which one it was. I have to go through my character records. But we're attacking in this field with all these cairns, and we get into a fight. And the guy that's playing the barbarian goes into a rage. We finish the fight, and then a bunch of wraiths come out of the cairn. Oh, we defeated one, and a bunch of the wraiths went back into the cairn. And everybody's kind of looking around kind of sadly. And I'm like, oh, we won. And the guy playing the barbarian's like, Nope, I'm a barbarian. I'm raging. I have to go charging into the cairn, even though it's chock filled with wraiths, and my character's going to die. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, what? And the other player's like, yeah, that's what barbarians do. I'm like,
Yeah.
barbarians do not do that. In fact, there is nothing that obligates you to hurl your character into certain death, even if you're raging. But they were all convinced, like in that's how they played. That was a risk of being a barbarian. I'm like, that's very interesting.
We play it that way too, actually.
Really?
While they're raging.
That you've got to be hurling yourself into whatever danger you can.
Yeah, they codified that down to the melee round, and you had no control of your character.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's codified. That's one of the things. The problem with third edition is they codified a lot of the game rules.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
I'm old school. I grew up with D&D, AD&D, second, first edition, and I used to at conventions. I used to talk about how to bring combat to life with role playing back in the late '80s. That was just as second edition came out. So and then I gave up. I had my own convention in '91 called Hexacon, and that ran for like 7 years. But I quit, went back to college, and so I didn't play D&D until third edition came out. So I missed the Living Greyhawk era.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea because I had my own career at the time.
It was a lot of fun. It was. I now, in retrospect, part of the reason that I think that hasn't really picked up is because it also bakes in a lot of privilege, right? Yeah. Frankly, the characters that had the players had the wealthiest characters with the coolest magic items, and the highest level ones were the players who were the physically like the wealthiest in the real world, who could just jump on a jet to play in a convention in California, and then jump on a jet the next weekend to go play in New York. So there was maybe a little too much privilege in a campaign structure built that way.
Yeah, I heard there was problems keeping control of that, and I also heard they were fairly upset when the whole thing ended.
Yeah, I was upset when the whole thing ended. I put a lot of my sort of heart and soul into it.
Yeah.
But I do think that I really feel like I really feel lucky to have been at the end to be able to pull a lot of the plot threads together at the end of Living Greyhawk in the Verbobonc region, at least. By then, I was writing a lot of the core adventures and things like that. So,
well, Damien, he's in Australia, by the way. He's one of our greatest contributors here. He said in third edition, barbarians did not have to fling themselves into a suicidal danger.
Yep, that's true. And I've lost my camera again.
Oh no! Oops.
But yeah. Third edition barbarians did not, but I think that everyone at this table had been playing like you had, where it was the rule earlier, so that's how they were playing it. I'm like, all right.
So right now, I guess you're with Wizards of the Coast until last week?
I was with Wizards of the Coast until last month. No, August 22nd was my last day there.
Dang. See, I was in IT, and I've been outsourced 4 times in my career, and I have PTSD from that career.
No,
I wake up in the middle of the night thinking I have to do that job on every job I ever had. I have dreams going back 20 years ago that I had to get a project done. And I go, oh my God, that's right. I don't work there anymore.
Like trying to finish up something in school or so on.
No,
horrible. I've got the thing that's been putting Living Greyhawk back in the front of my mind again is when I left at the end of August, just, a few weeks ago, and came to Paizo. I came as a manager, so I'm managing now, and one of the lines that I manage is the Pathfinder Society organized play. So I'm thinking back about what worked and what didn't in Living Greyhawk, and not just what worked and what didn't work for the stories at the time, but how people later thought about those adventures. The way we're now looking 17 years later, how might people use the Living Greyhawk adventures in building their own campaigns, or in your case, having you building it for them using these materials.
I'm doing what Gygax intended for the DM to do. I'm just doing it for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And trying to stick to canonical lore as much as possible, not changing things just because I think it's cool.
Right. That properly happens at the table at the time.
Yes.
Right. The DM who's running it is the one who decides, no, I guess this villain is actually going to be your friend or not, or no, I guess this nation isn't over here after all. That doesn't fit what I need at the time.
Yeah,
But
I look at the villages and the organizations as building blocks. You have the foundations. Go ahead and run it now.
yeah, and
Hearn
that's
the
great.
Hunter said, Greyhawk rules. Hey, thank you for joining the live stream, Hearn. He's one of our contributors. I wanted to ask you about... oh, yeah, so Pathfinder. So in my experience here in Arizona, most of the groups trying to recruit players at the gaming stores are Pathfinder. But at the conventions, it's mostly 5th edition groups being run and full at the table. That's what I noticed.
I think that's good for me to know. I think that depends a lot on kind of where you go. There are Pathfinder specific conventions that are really big, but yeah, if you go to, like I was at GaryCon earlier this year, and that was, as you might expect, far more D&D than anything else.
Yeah.
But when I get a chance to go to conventions as sort of a civilian, and I'm not working, when I'm doing it off the clock for Wizards or Paizo or wherever I'm working, I actually like to play anything except those games. The things that I can't convince my home group to run or play, like, oh, now I'm going to do a one-shot horror game, or let's do a modern game or something like that. But
it's unfortunate, so many great campaign worlds and rule systems that you can never run because you're at the limitations of your players at your home. Because I bought the Hyperborea Kickstarter and I had the full Kickstarter set, and I was never be able to run it because I couldn't get enough players interested in it. And I also had the full Kickstarter for Dolmenwood, and I actually ran 4 groups through that before the Kickstarter was released. I used the PDFs because I was a subscriber, and also we decided I was hired to help run the D&D program for the school system. It's a prep school. And we were running old school essentials because we wanted to teach the kids. They were from 6th grade to seniors in high school. We want to teach them how to play traditional Dungeons and Dragons without the bloat and focus on the role playing, not the character sheet.
Right.
That's why we did that.
But
some of the players came from families that played Pathfinder or 5th edition, so it was kind of. But they didn't complain. But they did mention it.
Yeah, I've got the same. Whenever I try to put groups together, one of the important considerations is, okay, where do you know? Let me meet you where you are. What's your foundation? And some people have parents who played AD&D, and that's what they've taught them, so that's what they know. Most of them have at least some experience with 5th edition, but not all of them. Some of them are just 3rd edition, and that's what they've seen, and so on. So, yeah, trying to meet people where they're at is a really important part of getting any kind of game together.
Well, there are heavy role-playing gaming stores in each of the cities, not the traditional hobby stores. They're the ones going under or going out or not interested or give you the attention. They don't care. They just want to sell Warhammer figures. But there are now popping up, including here, are gaming-focused places that do sell stuff like board games and role-play games, but their focus is on providing tables for people to run their events, and they actually have active scheduled events too, where they have little contests and tourneys and stuff. So those are the ones that I see are the positive active for the hobby.
Yeah, and that's a good way to meet. And then for the explosion, especially since the pandemic, of being able to play online, lets people connect, virtual tabletops and things. It's not my preference. I like being around a table with actual humans, and that's my preference. But it's not always possible, right? I still game with my friends from high school. We're now 40 years away from, or just coming up on 40 years out of high school, but we're still getting together, even though we're spread from literally Florida to Alaska. So virtually is the only way we meet. But
yeah, I tried that and I didn't care for it, so I stuck to my home groups here. I even thought about doing the DM for Hire website, but I created an account, but I didn't follow through with it.
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends that do that, and it's work. I mean, you're getting paid for your time, but it's all the kinds of prep and things like that. So they actually have a Some of them really kind of started. Some of the advice that one of my friends that does it for is you get a solid campaign together, or even an existing campaign that has a lot of sort of solid backing with a lot of different directions people could go. Village of Hamlet, Temple of Elemental Evil is a great example. And you run that for several different groups. And then the work becomes, okay, well, Group A got this far and Group B didn't, and Group C learned this secret, but Group D didn't.
Yep.
I'm like, no, that sounds like still way too much work for me. No, thank you.
Well, I have a comment about that. So when I'm recruiting players, I traditionally will run a mini campaign like the B2 module, Keep on the Borderlands with the Caves of Chaos, or the T1 module, Mohouse, or lately, this is even better actually, is the Old School Essentials, Hole in the Oak, or Incandescent Grottos, because like the B2 module, the adventure in the dungeon, the action is immediate engagement. It's quick. So it's not a lot of bloat to the campaign world, the build up, the storyline. It's immediate. Go to the tavern, get the rumors, hire some hirelings, buy some food and drink, introduce each other, go to bed, wake up in the morning, get to the dungeon within a couple hours and start kicking butt and start looting everything.
Yep, I played some Shadow Dark that plays that way. It's very much, well, go in and hope that you'll survive long enough to carry out whatever treasure you got.
Because you don't have a lot of time when you're trying to a convention or a store, or you're trying to vet players for your big campaign.
Yeah. And the thing that I tell a lot of players before we even really get started is that like a gaming group is like a pair of pants, right? Sometimes it's a good fit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. And if it's not a good fit, it's not your fault. It's not the pants' fault. Just go get a different pair of pants. Find a good fit.
It's true. So, I've always said is not only is it a requirement, especially with old school D&D, to get a master dungeon master that really knows what he's doing, but you have to have good players that enjoy playing with each other. All it takes is one bad player to ruin the entire group.
They can, yeah. And a good player is not necessarily someone who knows all the rules backward and forward, but somebody who's willing to engage and willing to learn and willing to sort of support everybody else having fun.
Right.
That's yeah.
And that can hold a conversation.
True.
But yeah, that's exciting. I'm glad that you got this new position. It sounds like you're going to be really busy.
I have been already, yes. But it's been good. The other thing that has been nice about it is, to the extent if it seemed like I kind of put you off to doing an interview like this, Wizards of the Coast has like a lot of hoops to jump through to appear on something like this.
Yeah.
And Paizo does not. So it was easy for me to get on now that I'm at Paizo. Easy for me to come back anytime you'd like. Just let me know.
Oh, nice. I don't mind promoting what you're doing or what Paizo's doing. We're all in the same boat here, and I'm a small channel, but I am growing and I'm very active.
Well, and I've already, since you first mentioned who you were and what you were doing to me, I pointed a few people your way as being, well, especially because I mentioned I'm running the Village of Hamlet for this game day up this medieval village. I'm like, if this is something you're interested in, maybe once we're done taking to your own gaming groups or something, boy, there's a guy that's got your back in putting something like this together.
You can't go wrong with my material. It's by far the best version of anything out there. There's other companies out there that are reproducing adventures. I know Paizo did, and Goodman Games does, but they tend to stick to the letter of the original module without any more extended content, maybe a few things, but I'm always disappointed that they didn't extend it even more, really expanded it like I'm doing here on this project. And that's what I always looked for, something like what they did with the Return to the Keep of the Borderlands. They did a fantastic job doing that. I love that module. There's a big difference between the two modules.
Yeah, well, and you're absolutely right. In fact, it's the Goodman Games Temple of Elemental Evil that I pulled the Village of Hamlet from. And you're right. It is just as the module existed, and to the extent there's anything else that I've had to expand from the basic, I've had to do that from my own on my own. So,
well, they did add a few things, which is cool, and they have a wonderful product. I own it. I have it behind me, but if you really need something that's really expanded, that's what I've done. So if you check out my Village of Hamlet or my Nold, you won't see anything better than that anywhere. And it's free on World Anvil because it's fan content. But if you want to print it, it's really hard to export from World Anvil, because if you try that, it strips all the formatting. It turns into one big line chart. It takes like 20 pages of print to print up one article. It'd be impossible. But in concise formatted, using the old school essentials formatting, the bullet points, and real terse and concise, I created these really tight PDFs that maximize every square inch on that page for a balanced article on that page, really professionally done. And my modules are perfect for printing up. You can't order a print version of anybody's product on DM's Guild unless you sell more than 100 copies, I think.
Okay.
I think that's it. And I haven't sold more than 40 or 50 copies of anything so far, but I'd love to be able to tell them to offer a print version of my stuff.
Print on demand. Well, and anything you were showing the old Living Greyhawk, that was just very bare bones presentation. It's not pretty. It does what it needs, and it's it's got a lot of good stuff packed in there, but it's not presented in a very pretty way. So being able to get it in a really attractive format, that aids in your preparation. It aids in running it. That's super good to be able to get.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you something else about that. So, okay, Dungeon Masters Guild. They do have the first 5 journals available on Dungeon Masters Guild. They do have the main journal for the Living Greyhawk campaign book guide, whatever it's called.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I'm allowed to reference it in my product, no problem. I'm not breaking any rules. Gift of Beauty is mentioned in those books, but the adventure is not in those books. That's in the module, and I have to I want to get permission from that author to recreate the Gift of Beauty for this website, which is fan content, which is separate from doing it on the DM's Guild. So I was thinking, I was hoping maybe you can help. So the Verbobonc Wayfarer's Guide, that's not on DM's Guild.
It is not. That is.
We want that. That'd be useful very much.
The Wayfarer's Guide, the Journal of the Wanderer, the Wayfarer's Guide to Verbobonc.
Yes.
We wrote that. The Verbobonc Triad. Yes, that was. I have it up in front of me right now. Russell Ackard. I got the name right about who did the map. Fellow student and a friend of mine named Anya. I always called her Anya. I don't know that I can pronounce her last name. Lukshyatova did the like some of the character art, and my brother did the graphic. He was a professional graphic designer, so he laid it out. Let me ping the 2 guys. I still know them. Okay. We're still in touch. That authored this. And then see about being able to send it your way. That being able to get that up would be kind of neat.
I can't put it up because I'm not the original author.
Oh, but we could. Oh, yes. And then I definitely have to get permission from the 2 of them, and
they would sell it. And so whoever put it up would get half the proceeds. So that's the thing between them and DM's Guild.
Right, but we can divide that, right? If I put it up, I can make it so that my half goes a third to me, and like 1/6 to me, 1/6 to another guy, 1/6 to another guy, and then the other half back to Wizards. I've done some of that before as far as divvying.
I have it on screen right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be useful because that means I can legally reference any information in there into the campaign. Not copy paste or anything, but reference the information.
Oh, yeah.
And also Gift of Beauty. I want Gift of Beauty bad. I think that's the perfect master adventure for this campaign.
That is Michael Breslin, who I am sorry to say I have not kept in particularly good contact with. We did sort of an initial handoff when I became Triad. I met him just a couple of times, but we've lost touch.
Nobody's
you'd have to reach out to
you. Because the thing is the Gift of Beauty, the venture, is pivotal to this campaign. It's one of the most important events happening in this campaign. because the border to Selene is closed. Queen Yolanda closed that border, and they so has nothing to do with any other organizations out there in the countries, the humanity, the humans, like Verbobonc, Ferrandi, Luna, and Iwis loves that. And the Greyhawk Wars haven't happened yet. So during the second uprising, the Temple of Elemental Evil, Iwis sent his the voice of Iwis, the hand of Iwis, Hedrick, the Supreme Commander of the Temple of Elemental Evil, down to the temple to create the second rising. And he recruited all these key players, leftover remnants of the Battle of Vermilion Meadows for this second uprising. And so during this second uprising, the Supreme Commander, Hedrick, is recruiting heavily and bringing a lot of supplies for this buildup. But it's high value to Iwis to keep that border closed. So Verbobonc and the Druids and Voluna Ferrandi are desperately trying to get that border back up to reestablish political ties with Queen Yolanda. So to do this, they put together this gift of beauty in that chest of Rao, and they sent it to the border to Queen Yolanda, hopefully with a delegation of diplomats to open up that border. So this is happening during this campaign, and it gets raided right on the border just south of Ostwerk. And so any of the players in this campaign, like a cleric or a paladin, they probably quested to get it to the bottom of this, not only to get to the bottom of the rise of banditry and piracy in the area, but to find out what happened to that gift of beauty. And some of the people running this campaign has Lareth that took it with his temple troops, or the Earth Temple, Romog took it to this abandoned monastery in the Cron Hills. So that's where the players can find it. But this gives the opportunity for players to get around the Viscounty before getting to 5th level, before tackling Nolb. It gives them a lot to do, and it's a very important quest to recover that gift of beauty. And if the Temple of Elemental Evil were to get that chest of Rao, they could sacrifice it into one of the nodes, the fire node in the Temple of Elemental Evil. They could do a lot with that. And also, just the fact that Queen Yolanda didn't get that chest is a huge win for the Temple of Elemental Evil. But like I said, this quest is massive, and a lot of players are asking for it. And I don't give copies of these modules to anybody that asks for it on my Discord channel. I don't share them.
Well, there is, and Michael Breslin, he did the return, even in year 1, Forest of Mysteries. That's the one that goes back to the same dungeon that was in Noble Ambitions. Michael Breslin did that too, letting you sort of continue that campaign a little bit.
Let's see. Here it is. Boop. I pooped it. Yep. Dang it. I didn't want that to open. It opened up a different version. Oh, no wonder it's a Word document. Oh, well, sorry. Anyway, yeah, I have that one too. So that's a follow-up quest later on in the campaign, which is pivotal too.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the Noble Ambitions and the Gift of Beauty. I start the campaign off with those two quests going. And then these other modules, like the ones you wrote, are future events that I like to add later on in the campaign.
Right. As needed, or as people's interest sort of goes that way. If you don't have a wizard interested in an academy, then the Magister Albahar stuff might not be so interesting to the group. But people decide what they want to follow. That's part of the fun of a campaign that's as well developed as this.
Oh my God, you guys have a wonderful dwarven quest line, dwarf quest line with Rockhall. That's an amazing quest line, but you really have to have a dwarf in your group that's interested in that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. And a dwarf that you can tie into that story. But and that one went all the way up on, I want to say, into like year 6 or even year 7 to finish that campaign. That was a lot of Lon Latham's work, I remember. That was the rock hall and recovering that. It was a lot of fun.
I did rock hall. It's done on the website, including a map.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, there's one map. There's one location. I made the location before the map, and that's this place right here. It's on screen. It's called Zalsaltor. In human tongue, it's Torfin, and it's a lizard folk village in the Fens of Tor. And as you can see, this is the master article. And if I scroll down to the right, is all the locations in that village. So I have 24 locations, fully separate articles for those locations within this village. Most of the village is underground, not topside. But after I created that village, I created this interactive map. So this map right here is all my artwork. And that's the village of the players can. So the pirates traded with them for special rare mushrooms, fungi from the lizardmen, harvesting them. And so they
Okay.
use it for their slavery activities. And they also work with the slavers in the Wild Coast. And that's another thing I just remembered I want to bring up real quick is unfortunately, I don't think anybody in the Living Greyhawk era handled the Wild Coast. Who's responsible for adventures in the Wild Coast?
I don't know that some of the areas were just called core regions. They weren't assigned to any geographical area, and the only adventures that occurred there were in the core modules that could be run anywhere. And I think the Wild Coast, I might have written an adventure on the Wild Coast that was a core adventure.
Oh,
I think we're something the Storm Tower, Return to the Storm Tower. I'm not sure if that was on the Wild Coast or not.
this Storm, the Dragon's Bastion?
No, that was a Verbobonc one. In addition to the stuff that I wrote for Verbobonc, I actually was a really prolific author as far as writing adventures for other regions.
Okay. So my intention is
Kevin Bolger quick says, sorry man, it hurts me every time you say the name of that evil Cambion deity. It's hard to let go of old habits. I know. Luke, I pronounce it Ayuz. That's how I've always pronounced it.
Ayuz.
Ayuz. Okay.
Ayuz. 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 Uiz. Uiz. Ayuz. Well, anyway, my intention for this project is to expand into the Wild Coast, integrating the activities of the slaver lords with the Temple of Elemental Evil. So a lot of these Dungeon Masters running this campaign are starting their campaign in different areas. I start mine in the city of Verbobonc. Others start theirs in Divers. Others start theirs in the Wild Coast, like Safeton, and they make their way, follow the slave trade to Nold, to Hamlet, and follow the bandits. So there's a lot of ways to run this campaign, and I want to expand these villages I'm keying into the Wild Coast and all the lords and organizations and everything that's going on there. That's my intentions.
Yep. Oh yeah. What is this? Core. I just found it. Core 6-11. Return to the Storm Tower takes place in the Palmarge.
Ayuz. Hey, thanks, Damon. Okay, what was the VR number?
Okay. It was Core 6-11. Return to the Storm Tower.
I only have one core, unfortunately. A couple other guys here has them, but I don't. Shoot. If you're interested in sharing some key information from some of those, you're welcome to send them to me, and I can integrate them. I have Core 1, the Citadel, and I actually use the gnome politics from that.
Oh yeah,
yeah, the gnome politics in by county. But if somebody has vital information about a certain location or organization in the Wild Coast, like you, and you wanted to incorporate it into this campaign, if I had it, I can use that foundational, inspirational material to expand it into this campaign.
Sweet.
That's what I can do if you're interested in any of that. I don't know, not everybody's in. One of my reasons my channel is so small is because it's very narrow focused. Not only do you have to like old school D&D, but you have to like the world of Greyhawk, and not just that, you have to be running the Temple of Elemental Evil, and not just that, it's got to be the 576 timeline.
Right.
God.
Yeah, because we were playing so much later in the 591 to 598 timeline.
Well, so that said, there are a lot of Dungeon Masters on our Discord channel that's running this campaign, and they love this project because these locations and NPCs still exist no matter what timeline you're running your campaign in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're still using it.
Well, and a lot of them, the stories can still exist regardless. And I know that the other regions have different initiatives. I think the Bandit Kingdoms, somebody got permission to get a bunch of the adventures out on DM's Guild. So people who are like, I want to be a whole Bandit Kingdoms campaign. All right, well, I can do all this Living Greyhawk Bandit Kingdom stuff all together. But so many of the people involved are kind of scattered now, like you've seen with Verbobonc, right? You talked to Rick Bruner and me, and Mike Breslin, I don't have contact with anymore, and the people, we've all gone our ways. And in some cases, I mentioned earlier, Rob Silva, who is a Triad member, he has since passed, unfortunately. So, But yeah, so we're a lot of us had great involvement, a real love for the setting at that time, and I'm really excited to see you carrying it forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If you don't mind, I'd like to stay in contact with you with if I have any further questions as I develop this project out further.
Oh, please do. Please do. Yeah, I'd love to get in touch. And in the chat, I remember, as another plug, hey, in the chat is the link to the Discord. So
Yeah.
I will jump in there and introduce myself on the Discord as well. So
Yeah, we have a couple Pacific rooms for this campaign. We have one room specific for your personal campaign that you can share with us, and another one for this project that I link every day's article into for everybody to critique and tell me what they want changed or added or whatever.
Great.
But I also real quick, like the Noble Ambitions module. I don't know if you've seen it, but I do credit the original author on those articles. So I make
that's
sure
really
I do
nice.
that.
Kind of carries on what we created. It's the same. Like I said, so many of us got used to working with each other and putting a bunch of other things together that I think it's a real treat when somebody later on is able to say, oh, hey, here's some credit for something you did way back then.
Well, immediate use of one of your articles modules is VER4-09, the Wicked 3. I'm actually using a lot of key information from that module to flush out the bad guys that are active in the area.
Yeah, that was written specifically because we needed sort of an entry point to people to say, here's how we're setting everything up from this point on.
I'm using it to set up the bad guys. So I'm not using the adventure. I'm just using those NPCs how you describe them and their role.
Yeah, that's good for any kind of setup. So thank you.
Thank you. So I'll credit you whenever I reference the Wicked 3. I'll make sure I put your name attached to it.
Perfect. All right, and I've slipped into your Discord now too.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hi, folks.
Yeah. So you're welcome to share anything you want in there. It'd be very, appreciated by everybody there. There's we're up to like 2,000 members almost, and a lot of them just like to just watch. They like to hang out and absorb, and they don't really say anything. But once in a while, somebody will comment. They'll pop up and say, "What about this?" Because hey, I haven't heard you talk before.
Awesome. Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay, I guess that wraps up our live stream, and we talked quite a bit. I really appreciate you joining me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. This is really good, and it's really, it's. I appreciate you having me on, but more than that, I appreciate all the work that you've put in over the past many years to really make this exciting setting grow and thrive. So.
Well, if you're interested in me supporting all the things that you're doing, let me know. And because I've done reviews for Old School Essentials, Dolmenwood, and
Dungeon Crawl Classics,
Shadow Dark, Dungeon Crawl Classics. I did that one. So I'm always doing stuff like that.
Can do.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate you joining me, and everybody, thank you for joining the 3X live stream. You're welcome to support this project on the Patreon. Patreon is for just you want to support to see the project grow. Just join for free, and you still get access to all these maps for free. If you want a higher resolution version of the maps or artwork, you'll have to be a member. But I also post all the stuff in Discord as well, and you're welcome to join the conversation there or the project and collaborate with us there. You're more than welcome to join us. Whew.
Excellent.
Well, okay, well, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and end this here, and thank you guys, and I'll see you guys more next week.